Oh. Oh, the YouTube chat. The Twitch chat one worked. That's rare. But right, we should be live, we should be going, we should be all be happy. So yeah. Hello, how's things? How's your week been? I'm getting notifications, that's good. Yeah, how's things? Obviously, technically, saw you yesterday. But yeah. It's been an interesting week, for sure. So I missed out on his 3070. Very unlucky, man. Where were you at? Where were you looking? Were you looking at aftermarket or through thingy's site, like Nvidia site direct? Hello, Sophie. I'm glad you're still here. Is Beowulf still here as well? Hello, Tal. Hello, Sal. Said that wrong. Hello, Janazik. Hello, Chris. Hope you've been alright. Well, it's only been 24 hours, but yeah, I'm alright. Today wasn't as interesting of a day. I did finish a video. It was optical key switches explained, because it turns out that there's that's kind of the new keyboard buzzword, and so that was interesting to look at. I also had a call with Loopdeck today, the people who made this thing that my version doesn't work, which is actually really interesting. They were basically just asking for feedback beyond what I was talking about in the review and to sort of elaborate a bit more, which is kind of rare because most of the time when I give any level of even remotely critical feedback, most companies just asked me to take the video down. A really good example of that is WoW, the WoW bike, the e-bike. Because the funny thing is that I only said what I told them everything that I said in the review. I told them before the review went up, just as a in conversation while they were picking the bike up. And I talked through everything, and they were talking about, this is, yeah, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, yeah, that's all great, yeah, I understand. And then the review goes up saying exactly what I told him, and he says that they since the video has run its course, we would like you to take the video down. Uh-huh. No. So yeah, the video had only been up for like a week. It's run its course. Hello to James. Yes, just started. Start at 8 PM roughly UK time. Hello Stuart. Hello Zach as well. Thank you very much for all tuning in. Yes, it is quite, but it happens a lot. You'd be surprised. MSI was probably the worst offender, but they're by far not alone in the market for asking me to take videos down that aren't utterly perfect. Hey, thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. But yeah, they're certainly not alone, which is disappointing. Although, ironically, Razer, at least the UK PR guy, is probably one of there is quite a few very chill people, but he's one of the most chill people, because every time that I review a Razer laptop, and I'm not a fanboy for Razer, and I would personally prefer a laptop that doesn't cut my wrists every time I try and type on it. So I'm not exactly critical, like overly critical, but I'm also hardly praise giving. And yeah, he's very go for it. Say whatever you like, and it seems like a lot of the time it's he agrees. So yeah. That's good. There's no B-roll of you in bike gear during the ride. Yes, there was. I rode past the camera, and there was a shot of me doing a wee stoppie. Come on. Know your facts. What's the bike video? It's called Wow e-bike. Here you go. You can watch it after the stream. It's 1:23 a.m. here and still watching. Thank you very much for your dedication. And hello to Mr. Simok, who is in Australia. Enter unknown 3070 was another disappointing day for me. Couldn't get a 3080, couldn't get a 3070. Looks like AMD it is. We can only hope that AMD has the stock levels to back their claims up, and I really, really hope that they drop the price on the lowest end card, because while the 3070 at current launch pricing, a lot of them are selling for £600+, selling for what will inevitably be 550 on the AMD side is yeah. So Zach, the UK guy's been there for like 5 years or something. He's been there for ages. He's very chill. He's very dedicated to his job, which is, you know, interesting. But yeah, he's one of the few people who've stuck around. Also, the guy from Gigabyte has been at Gigabyte since I've been a tech reviewer, which again is very rare because most of the time when I upset companies, I really don't care about it that much because I know that I always outlast any person that I can piss off. In fact, that's happened a number of times where I've been in the bad books for whatever reason, and the PR agency or the person changes, and they reach out to me again like, hey, can you review this thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. You're gonna hate me again, but sure. Phil, there are a number of companies who I could probably ask that to, and I think the answer is no. Yeah, Zach, that's you're right for the majority of people. Like I said, I've outlasted most of them, so yeah. Can you recommend a single-player shooter type game suitable for a 61-year-old? Nice. That's easy-ish, doesn't involve a million keystrokes to remember, and a reasonably spec PC. So I think the trouble you'll probably have is that a lot of first-person shooter games are very. I suppose you're talking about a single player, so you know that's good. Weirdly enough, COD Modern Warfare, the campaign for that, it's not the longest thing in the world, but it was actually very enjoyable to play. In terms of single player games, I really don't play that many these days. So off the top of my head, I couldn't really tell you. But yeah, strangely enough, the technically latest, because Black Ops Cold War isn't out yet. So COD Modern Warfare is really good. Also Battlefield 5, the War Stories single player aspect of that was really good as well. So yeah. Or yeah, you could always go retro and get go the Half-Life route or Portal. Got a question. Ryzen 3700X, 65-watt TDP. Is it really 65? That was and a 3080. Is a 650-watt power supply good enough? So the thing that I would say is that I have I've been testing 3080s. I've tested 2 now, which, you know, amazing. But when I've been testing them, I tested with a 650-watt power supply. It was with a Ryzen 9 3900X, which is obviously 12 core instead of 8, but it's it shut off a number of different games and resolutions because of the current spike. So really 750, 800, 850 watts just to handle that initial current spike when you load up games might actually be worth it. Yeah. The maximum spike I can't tell you. I don't have suitable enough equipment to measure that, I'm afraid. But I can tell you that I've tested on 650 and 750 watt power supplies with varying configurations, and the 750 watt power supply, brand new, testing, like I said, with the 3900X and a 3080, even at 750 watts, when I loaded up PUBG at 1440p or higher, straight up turn off, crash, wouldn't go. So GeForce or Radeon, assuming numbers are good. So I know that you have a 3080, sorry, a 3090 on order, and so for the 3090, it seems like a no-brainer to go with the AMD side. It is significantly cheaper, and according to AMD's benchmarks, it is just as fast. So for that card, seems like a hands-down win for AMD, the best option at that price tag. For the 3080 brand area, we're gonna have to see independent benchmarks of that to see what the difference is, if it is significantly faster, if it's matched, and what the I suppose finalized pricing will be like. Currently, it seems like a pretty decent value, but like I've said with AMD in the past, that does appear to be liable to change. And then for the 6800 non-XT, so the 3070 competitor, I mean, obviously stock levels of 3070 means you can't get it, but the balance there doesn't seem right. It seems like the price is too high for the performance that they're asking, they're offering in theory anyway. Hello Dante, and thank you very much. The 6900 XT is so worth it due to the price. What do you think about the ecosystem of CPU and GPUs now? So that's an interesting one. Obviously, the smart memory access thing. Sorry, a lot of crud. So basically, my understanding of the smart memory access is that when you have a compatible motherboard, it lets the CPU have direct access to VRAM rather than, I guess, having to go through system RAM or something along those lines. And so, in theory, that is a benefit. The only I suppose concern I would have is that the benchmarks that AMD showed, which are obviously as beneficial as they can make it, relatively speaking, was only showing what, an average of maybe 4%, and that was including rage mode turned on, which is their auto overclocking mode. So is it, is that, call it average of 4% more performance, is that coming from the auto overclocking or is that coming from smart memory access? I'm not sure. I think once we get some testing on it and see what it can do, and if developers can leverage it, then that might be a more interesting thing. But the problem is that such a small subset of people will have them, even pretending that the same number of people who buy 3070, 3080, 3090 buy the new AMD cards, pretending that those numbers are the same, that's still a very small subset of the user base. The vast majority of people won't have that level of card and that support built in. So yeah, a bit of a long shot, but I don't suppose you know when the 3070 AIB cards. So I thought that was today. It might be in a few days' time. I don't know exact. I know that the review embargo, I believe, is up, but I'm not sure. Hey, what do you prefer for esports gaming? A 10700K or 3700 XT? So for esports gaming at 1080p, the 10700K will probably be a better bet. Dave, I checked the graphs. The rage mode was on for the 6800 and the 6900 XT, and it was on for the when they were talking about smart memory access, it was on for both. Anything that showed rage mode I believe you have to have rage mode enabled to enable smart memory access. That's something I'm not quite sure about, but I think that was the case. But yeah, like I said, if developers can optimize for it, sweet, it's going to be great. Otherwise, we'll see. What do I prefer, the new 6800 XT or the 3080 with ray tracing? Do you have numbers? No, I don't have any. I have one 3080 that's going back soon. I don't have a 6800 XT. I don't think many people do. And if I did have one, I wouldn't be able to share any numbers with you because that would be under embargo. So the only information that I have is what they showed in the presentation yesterday. So, yeah, lottery money. Just reworked my gaming and editing dual build setup. Now able to get a test bench as well. Nice one, nice one. Hornets, hello. I'm okay. Bit of a sore throat. Do you have any idea when you might get your hands on the new AMD CPUs and GPUs for benchmarking? So I pretty much confirmed that I'm not getting the new AMD CPUs pre-launch. I might maybe get the 5600X pre-launch, maybe, but that's a real stretch, and it's unlikely. I don't have one now, that's for sure. So whereas most other press will have one, and GPU wise, that's still too far off, really. So I'm not sure. Hopefully soon, TM. But yeah. Hey, Dave, got a question. I don't have a gaming PC. Gonna build one. Plan is B550, B450 Tomahawk 3600 or 3700X, RTX 3080. Then swap out the motherboard and CPU in 2021 with M5, but keep the 3080. There wasn't really a question there. But that sounds like a decent rig. That sounds like a reasonable plan. I suppose if you go in the 3080, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's like 3080 is probably going to be overkill for 1440p, but it's fine. I probably wouldn't go 4K personally. 1440p high refresh rate is, so that's my recommendation. Mickey, 63rd in the queue for 3080. Nice. So Mickey, the only question will be what the stock level is like. Hypothetically, from what we can see from AMD's numbers, the 6800 XT might be a better shout, and it certainly will be a better value for money, in theory anyway. But in practice, we'll just have to wait and see what the stock availability is actually like. Dante, is that confirmed numbers? Because that looks a little high to me. It's $579, so I would assume it'd be more like £550. But yeah. So we know that it definitely can run ray tracing, because the new consoles are talking about it and showing off about it. The only question will be, can it keep up? Which the fact that they didn't show numbers would suggest that it can't. But of course we'll have to wait and see, and go from there, really. Do you think AMD release a sub $500 one? I'm hoping so. Like, I'm hoping that they dip the price, but yeah, it seems unlikely. Ryzen, they do, but not quite that much. Normally, they didn't with the CPU. But yeah, Phil, I don't believe you can buy an AMD reference card. They're not like Nvidia, who sell like Founders Edition versions. You can buy, you can only buy AMD cards from the AIBs, the partners. Does CPU matter for games beyond 1080p? 2 to 4K is mainly handled by the GPU, not CPU. Didn't I do a video on that? Which one did I? I think I covered that in the 3080 bottleneck. Realistically, at 1080p, it matters. At 1440p, not really, and at 4K, not at all. I'm pretty sure that the performance numbers were within margin of error, going from a 4-core 5-year-old CPU to a 12-core, new CPU. So, yeah, not really at 1440p. It's not a massive deal. Sapphire is, I suppose, the preferred AMD AIB or partner. Mizzy, I can certainly hope not. I think they've put a lot of effort into the drivers since Little Navi launch. So yeah. Currently on B350, Ryzen 1600 and 1066 gig. Do you think it'd be better to upgrade to a 3600, spending £350 on a GPU, waiting for a 3060, or keep the 1600 and go for a £500 GPU? So I think for that sort of price tag, getting a £500 GPU, because that puts you in the 3070 6800 price bracket, and those are incredibly impressive cards, and you will see a significant performance uplift, especially if you get a a 1440p monitor. Obviously that wouldn't be included in the budget, but yeah, it's like that would be decent. The Ryzen 1600 is old, but it's certainly not terrible. The performance gap, even at 1080p from a say 1600 to a 3600, you would still get more performance getting a 3070, for example, than you would getting a 5700 XT and a new CPU. I think I've asked this before, but what's the difference between X570 and B550? The only difference is the connection to the chipset, really. So the connection to the chipset on X570 is full PCIe Gen 4, which means you can run multiple Gen 4 NVMe SSDs without any bottlenecks. Well, relatively. Whereas on B550, the top M.2 slot goes to the CPU directly, and the top PCIe slot goes to the CPU directly, but then everything else normally connects through the chipset, and the link to the chipset is a Gen 3. I hope not, Ryzen. I'm afraid for the folks who are dropping what I believe is Arabic in the chat, I'm afraid that I'm not fluent, so Google Translate. Any idea we can expect third-party reviews of the new AMD cards? My guess would be probably on that launch date, the availability date, which was the 18th of November, I think. So probably then. Thank you. Hi, I want to buy a new CPU, $380 US. Do you think the 10700K or the 3800 XT have the same? They have the same cores, and threads. I play casual games. I do video editing and 3D work. Should I wait for the new CPUs? If you can hold off until November 5th, there will be some new CPUs that you can. That could be potentially better value for money options, maybe. So if you're willing to hold out, that might be a good shout for, because it's what, a week away. So yeah, next week. I don't think you can pin comments on Twitch. On Twitch, well, I suppose I'm streaming on Twitch as well, but yeah. If I missed any questions, by the way, as always, feel free to just repost them in the chat. When I say repost them, I don't mean like spam it every 3 seconds. Like, give me a chance. But yeah, if it's like rolled off the top of the screen, then I'm not gonna see it. And so feel free to just repost it every few minutes if I haven't answered it. Do you think AMD will be going after NVIDIA's enterprise hardware too? Our compute servers at work are NVIDIA based. So they've tried that in the past. Obviously they have their, God, what's it called? It used to be FirePro. Whatever FirePro changed into, the blue cards, all that jazz. So they have done that in the past, and I know that they were reasonably successful about it. But so I expect that will happen. I don't know whether they'll go quite all out or as all out as NVIDIA does. NVIDIA has quite the, I suppose, server-side ecosystem going on, whereas I suppose AMD is actually probably in a better place to do it because they've got their EPYC CPUs and now they've got big Navi GPUs. So in theory, cram them all together into a system and ship it. But it seems like AMD has quite the hands-off approach beyond the point of initial sale. So AMD currently seems to be willing to sell, chips, whether that's GPU or CPUs, do some R&D work to make things all work together, but then they're not the sort of company currently who would, like NVIDIA have their grid servers and all the different actual servers that you can buy from them, which yes may use Supermicro chassis or whatever, but NVIDIA is the one who's buying those in, assembling them, setting them up and shipping them, whereas AMD doesn't seem to be the company to kind of take all of their products and then sell a finished good. I think they kind of leave that up to partners. I know Gigabyte do some EPYC servers and that kind of thing, and I'm sure Supermicro do as well, but yeah, that seems to be their approach at the moment. AMD GPU for gaming strictly. Yeah, they seem good, at least the new ones that are soon to be launching, so yeah. If I build a new PC mainly for gaming, which is better, Intel or AMD Ryzen? I fear AMD's notorious drivers and heating issues. So you're talking about CPUs. AMD CPUs run significantly cooler than Intel's, and there isn't any major driver issues. In fact, the AMD CPUs are significantly less vulnerable to security what are they called? Vulnerabilities at the moment. Spectre Meltdown still technically aren't fixed in hardware with Intel. So on the CPU side, the AMD CPUs, I would argue, probably have a bit better, I suppose, shelf life effectively. It kind of depends what resolution you're playing at. Are you playing at 1080p or 1440? I feel like you were the person who asked the question earlier, but I could be wrong, so I'm gonna hold out. But yeah, what was it? Most servers will be Intel based and thus simpler to change the CPU. Hypothetically, except the Intel's terrible for backwards and forwards compatibility, so it's actually more likely you need to change the motherboard as well. So yeah. Hey, is that your PC behind you? No, that is a test PC. My PC is built into my desk. I did a full series of videos about it, including relatively recently where I kind of redid a few bits, but My PC is a Ryzen 3700X and a 1080 Ti, 64 gigs of RAM because I use it all. Multiple SSDs and all that jazz. So yeah, that is a Ryzen 3900X. The GPU that's in there currently is a GTX 1070 because I was benchmarking that for a video that probably came out a few weeks ago. But that's my testing desk. The graphics cards that are in the stack on the desk are a 2070, a 2080 Ti, and a 2080. Do you think AMD will ever be as good as NVIDIA at ray tracing? Probably one day. I doubt that this generation is that generation. And obviously, NVIDIA has a head start for sure. But yeah, I don't see why not if it is adopted as a quality setting here on out, basically. They could certainly focus more on it if they wanted to. No, NVIDIA made ray tracing part of, in collaboration with Microsoft. So it's DirectX ray tracing, DXR. That's what all the games implement. That's why you don't see in like COD Modern Warfare, it's not RTX on, it's DXR on or off. NVIDIA does own DLSS, which is their super sampling feature. And that is proprietary to them. Obviously, NVIDIA Reflex is now in some games, so that's proprietary to them. But ray tracing as a concept, nope, they developed it with Microsoft, so it is part of the DirectX 12 API. And if games want to support it, and if people like AMD or heck Intel some point, want to support it, then yeah, that's possible. What case? The case is part of a build guide that I did relatively recently. It's a Corsair 4000X, the tempered glass one, with many side panels removed. What are your thoughts on the 6800 matching the 2080 Ti? So hypothetically, it looks good. Obviously, so I think the 6800, if I remember rightly, those benchmarks were using Rage Mode and Smart Memory Access, which not everyone will have access to, and so that might level the playing field a bit with the 2080 Ti, which will then mean that the 3070 is actually faster. But yeah, if true, it's a great leap forward because competition is great. Is your housekeeper on strike? Yes, 24/7 because it's me and I'm terrible. Yeah, so Chris is right. The difference between ray tracing that you'll find in Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, Fusion 360, not really. What's the other ones? Cinema 4D, Octane Render, all that sort of stuff is that ray tracing, the way that they do that is they emit however many light particles from a light source, have that bounce off and calculate every single place that light beam goes, whereas DXR does it the other way around. It looks at the object and works out where the light beams would have come from that object, so you only need to calculate the ones that actually matter, the ones that actually hit stuff, rather than just the span of photons that you're trying to calculate, the rays of light that wouldn't actually affect the scene. And so that speeds up the processing a lot, like seriously a lot. Like I know that ray tracing has a significant performance impact, but Jesus, you should try ray tracing with Blender and you'll see just how painfully slow it is. Actually, speaking of Blender, I designed all of these t-shirts in Blender. I did little animations for them. This is the particles tee, because this is actual particles that I made in Blender around logo shape, and they're emitting out. The render for this, which was like 10-20 seconds long, I did it on my 24-core Threadripper system, and it took literally days. because they were all emissive. They were all, you know, spreading light, which, yeah. Thanks, Chris. Are B550 motherboards the ones with passive cooling instead of the small fan? Yes, X570 boards are the ones that had the fan on them. And B550, because they don't support PCIe Gen 4 through the chipset, they don't need a chipset fan. Nice one, Tom. You liked it, right? And what GPU do you use for Blender? It was a mix. The Threadripper system, I think, probably had a like RX 580 in it because it's also the Hackintosh system. But at the time, I couldn't use GPU rendering with Blender because depth of field wasn't supported on the Cycles renderer with GPU rendering because it was still what you call it, early access beta testing. So yeah. But I designed it on my 1080 Ti and then I rendered it on, like I said, the Threadripper. I mean, I designed it on a 3700X. Might have even been 2700X at that point. Someone asked, with all the new hardware, FoodWarCat, given all the new hardware that's released and announced, what would you like to use in your own rig? I mean, the obvious answer is that, you know, the fastest CPU and the fastest GPU, obviously. In reality, I'm probably not upgrading my PC. I don't really need to. I can still play all the games that I want at 1440p at high enough, frame rate that I don't care. And then, so I think the first thing that I'd probably upgrade, give or take, is probably the graphics card, just because I've been having some stability issues with it. It's blue screening when I launch games sometimes, and other things like that. So anything from 2080 upwards will be similar to more performance. Thank you very much. You're a legend. But yeah, and then in theory CPUs that I can get more horsepower for editing. My favorite ATX case, it's still the Fantex N2 Evolve and the N2 Evolve X. Those are beautiful cases to build in. They have such nice quality of life and improvements in building the case, building in it. They're such nice quality, and especially with the X with a bit better airflow, it is a really nice case. The case that's normally there and the one that's on the floor actually is the standard N2 Evolve, and then the X is also on the floor next to it. That's the one that's got the Threadripper system in it. Can't read. 1600 XT. It was easier last week when you bought whatever Nvidia got you to buy. True, yeah. It's like, competition's great. Like, I really hope that these new GPUs will effectively just bring a bit of a price war and bring them down a little bit more. That'd be great. But yeah, competition is fantastic. Herald, honestly, the answer is you probably can't right now. I don't know of many people who weren't only taking online pre-orders and on online orders. Even for stores that you can visit locally, it seems like that wasn't really a thing. So, yeah, I'm afraid the queues are too high. Matthew, thank you very much. What was... Oh, there you go. Return my 3800 XT to Micro Center. Gonna grab a 15900X. Nice. Do you think when partners will produce water-cooled version of the 6800 XT? Right, so I believe that I saw a post about a number of people were already working on water cooling blocks for them. Obviously, with the way that AMD does car designs, they do actually still provide a reference PCB to a lot of manufacturers, and a lot of manufacturers still use them. So from that, it will be really easy for you to pick up any card you want and stick a water cooling block on it. If you're looking for one of those closed loop ones, then my guess would be those probably won't come out at launch. If I had to guess, especially because I don't know of many that have had that many of the Nvidia cards that have come out have had that as an option yet. So yeah. Hero Video, hello. And hello to all the people who have just joined. General John, best GPU for 200. A used RX 580. In fact, you can actually get a lot on the used market for that kind of money. But best new GPU in that price point, I'm not sure. I want to say that that's kind of 5500 XT, 1660 Super kind of money, so something like that. But yeah. Mr. Prisms, what do you need help with? What do you think of the MAG 251RX? I have not checked it out, nor have I checked out the Asus one. I would argue, so I'm guessing that both of those are TN monitors, right? Oh no, the MSI one is apparently IPS. Interesting. So for best clarity, it will mostly depend on what the response times for each of the monitors are. It's all well and good having ridiculously high frame rates, but if the panel can't keep up, what's the point? But unfortunately, like I said, I haven't reviewed either of those specifically, so I can't tell you, I'm afraid. Reviews, checking out the actual response time will be better. Hey, if I allocate more RAM to, let's say, whiteboard in Windows 10, will it reduce lag? So I'm not really sure what you mean by allocate RAM and whiteboard. Can you explain a bit more? And what's a good spec excluding storage for a Plex server? So there's kind of a lot of different ways that you can go about it, but the simplest way is that you know, getting a used system or a used bundle on, say, eBay for example. You don't need all that much. Obviously, the more cores that you can give it, the faster the transcoding can be. But my experience, it doesn't need more than one or two, say, first or second gen Ryzen cores to really kind of get on with it. So realistically, quad core first or second gen Ryzen, you're gonna be having a good time as long as you give it enough RAM to do that as well. And it will depend on what how you want to run that. If you want to run it on something like FreeNAS or TrueNAS or whatever they renamed it to, then because that's a ZFS file system that it uses, you'll probably want like 16 gigs of RAM for that, depending on how much storage you have. Whereas if you're running it just like you're running Linux, you know, running Ubuntu or whatever, whatever LTS version is available now, and running Plex just on that, with whatever storage you have attached, then in that case you can probably get away with more like 8 gigs of RAM and 4 cores. Yeah, Mickey, that's a great setup. Yeah, an old Optiplex is plenty fine. The only thing that I would argue about that is you might run into issues with being able to attach enough storage reliably, but for Plex servers, it's fine, definitely. And Tom, I'm glad you like the t-shirt, and that you like the exploded GPU one too. Mickey, I'm honestly not sure. It will, in terms of if their Corsair are going to launch a 3080 block. I would assume they will, but it depends what GPU they'll pick. My monitor keeps turning off and on saying HDMI. I restart my PC and it keeps doing it. So yeah, trying a different HDMI cable or trying a different set, like a different connection, so DVI, or if you've got DisplayPort, that as well, to see. I do. I'm actually I'm reading the chat on a like 10-year-old HandG hands-free monitor. I've reviewed a couple of them. They're okay. They're definitely on the cheaper side generally, um, but they're certainly not bad. Um, Overall, it depends what one you mean, of course. Ah, ugh. Apparently all B550 boards have BIOS flashback. Fair. Oh, as a competitive gamer, I couldn't recommend the 5700 XT, and I have 99% confidence it will carry over uh, to the 6000s. Do you think it will suffer the same issues? Um, so it's a fairly very different architecture. So um, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, not too sure. I know that they have been trying really very hard. And so my hope is that the drivers are as bug free as possible. I should clarify that I've tested 5700 XTs, 5600 XTs, and those kinds of cards, and I didn't have any issues with them. At least any issues that I wouldn't have on any other GPU or test GPU, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's personally I can't say that I ever had any problems, but obviously there were a number of reports. But do you agree with me that in the end one buys with their heart? Like I suppose technically to a degree, it depends what your biases are. Like if you are preconceived, or if you're a fan of AMD, then yeah, you're probably gonna what you call it, you're probably gonna favor buying a Ryzen chip, even though like say 1080p gaming isn't quite as good, even if you are gaming at 1080p. But it depends how much that weighs on your consciousness, or how much that weighs on your decisions. Some people are very methodical about how they do purchase things, and will watch literally every review under the sun and try and make as an objective purchase as possible. But yeah. Chris, that doesn't surprise me. Tao, so Rory says that all B550 boards have BIOS flashback, but as far as I'm aware, the 5000 series Ryzen's are drop-in chips to the current gen boards. You will want to do a BIOS upgrade, but as far as I'm aware, they will still boot in those current gen boards. As far as I'm aware. Yes, Ryzen, although that was a YouTube sub rather than a Twitch one, which is confusing. What kind of RAM is better, 36MB CL16 or 32 CL17 or 16? So probably with that difference, the CL17 is probably the better option. Especially because it depending on what kit it is, you might actually be able to train that down a bit more. How do you properly install a water cooler? It depends which one you're talking about and what CPU and all that jazz, but generally 8 screws through the fans, or through the fans into the radiator to hold them in, and then the radiator to the top of the front of your case, and then your CPU block with some thermal paste onto the CPU and even mounting pressure. Yeah, but it depends. Is that a Quake tee? No, it's a TechteamGB tee. It's pinned in the YouTube chat if you want to check it out. I designed it myself in Blender, as we've already been talking about. The bottom line is we'll mostly be playing Cyberpunk full of ray tracing, so AMD, no matter how shiny Navi, can't match the 3080. I doubt you'll be playing it with ray tracing. I doubt it. I mean, obviously the AMD cards now do support it. Obviously they didn't talk about performance, so we can't tell. And sure, if ray tracing matters that much to you, fair play. But I know that I don't care, and I have access to, well, 2080 Ti's. No worries, Moth. Yeah, if you want a proper guide, check out the Gamers Nexus video. Oh, just plugged it in, it's working the same display settings I had before. Change it back because it would introduce extra latency. I didn't see the start of that comment, so I'm not quite sure what you mean. I don't, Ryzen. I haven't seen anything about it. Oh, the USB dock, right. So I did see that. So yeah, like that, it could do to a degree. Can you tell me the difference between 2x16 and 4x8 RAM on a dual channel motherboard? Is it better to get 4 or 2? If you said if I want to upgrade. So if you already have 2x8 gig, getting another 2x8 gig kit is the preferred method generally. If you are currently buying, just that is the only RAM that you're gonna get to start with. 2x16 is generally a better shout because you're generally loading the memory controller less, and so you can generally push those 2 sticks a bit harder than you can push for lower capacity DIMMs. Zen 3 $1,000 build. In theory, that's possible, especially with the 5600X. It would just depend on what the pricing's like when it actually comes out to see what the trade-offs are. Basically, just how good of a GPU can you get. Editing a video in Vegas Pro, screen turns bright black, then normal black. Screen and PC were still on, so I restarted it, but it was the same. Check your video connection. Try different inputs. And yeah, bright black. Cross-platform, including PS4, open world RPG. Okay, fair. It's not really my style. I think I might have seen a few like screenshots of it. It's not quite for me. Fair. I really like crossplay. Like, in COD, it's kind of annoying because you get like murdered by the aimbot of the controllers, or you just absolutely style on them. But the ability for people to play with friends is exceptional, no matter the platform. So I'm all for it. What's your opinion on the new consoles beating PC performance? They beat them at the price tag for sure. Obviously, they pretty much always have. But the what you call it? They certainly don't beat top end performance or even probably mid range enthusiast performance for sure. So yeah. The 3700X is fine for now. If the new chips like the 57 or maybe 5900X are significantly faster in my workflows, then I might consider it for sure. But that's quite a costly upgrade for me. For probably not all that much more performance, it might make more sense for me to go and buy a used 3950X, for example. And yeah. Yes, top-end enthusiast performance does cost a lot more. I said that. They're selling the consoles pretty much at a loss, if not a complete loss, because that's what they've pretty much always done. If you look at the first generation Xbox, that was a Pentium 3 and they sold that at a loss so that they could sell the games and Xbox Live and all that sort of stuff as value adds. And now that they've got their own stores built in, it's even more it makes even more sense for them to sell them at a significant loss, just so that they can get people on the platform and then paying them a whole lot of money for games later. So yeah, it's a different economic playing field because you're buying an ecosystem that you're trapped in rather than a PC that you can do anything with. Nice one, Sophie. And you said, oh no, I missed that. Who's making the profits then on a PS5? Sony, after you buy like 2 games. My budget says B450, but my heart says 10 700k. Nice. The main goal is to get in your house. Yeah. And yes, I think so. Wasn't it less than that? Do you think I should get a 6800 XT paired with 5600X? So for gaming wise, yeah, the 6800 XT and the 5600X will make a lot more sense than the 6800 and the 5800X, for sure. But the what you call it? You are talking about 4 unreleased products. How are they not making a profit at that price? Well, bear in mind that they are buying the chips from AMD that won't be ridiculously cheap, and they are buying storage. They are manufacturing the the PCBs specific to that, and then manufacturing them, all the the casing and all that sort of stuff. And yes, that sort of stuff might be made for £50 each, but the whole system in general won't be. I can pretty much guarantee it. They might not actually be making a loss. It might be breaking even or a slight slight profit, but I guarantee you they are not pricing it to make with the intention of making a significant profit on the console. Is the 3080 worth it over the 3070? Is the performance gap enough to justify the price? I don't think so. I think that for the vast majority of people, even playing at 1440p, I think the 3070 is plenty. PWM Fan Hub. Honestly, I'm not sure. I suppose technically speaking, the only ones that I can think of off the top of my head is like Corsair, like Lightning Node or Commander Pro or whatever it's called. But yeah. Okay, Ryzen, cool. Cool, awesome. Skyfox, did you? Was there a second part? I didn't see the first part. Do you think there's a chance AMD will get done for anti-competitive practices? I don't think so, because it's not like they're locking features away for Intel CPU users. Technically speaking, it is a technical benefit that they can provide because they control the full supply chain kind of thing. So I doubt it, but yeah. Herald's, most of the 1440p 27-inch monitors are if you're not looking for 4K, those are the like stunning clarity. A outright the whatever it is, the Asus PG27 AQ or UQ, the 4K 140 Hz one, that was just beautiful. But yeah, I don't have another one off the top of my head. What's the ideal card for 1080p 75 FPS gameplay? Max or high settings? You could probably get away with an old RX 580 if you want cheap. Otherwise, what would that be, like 1650, 1660, RX 5500 XT, those sorts of cards? What's the best monster for PS5? At this point, I'm not sure. I don't have one, so I certainly couldn't test it and tell you. But yeah, I'm not how. I'm not sure. I'm afraid. 8K TV. Yeah. I'm 23 and I can't tell the difference. Moth. So if you want really fancy, the Gigabyte FI27Q-P, assuming you want high refresh rate. Otherwise, what you call it? The Acer, what was it? The BG271UP. That's really nice. That's also high refresh rate. 1440p and 27 inches. No source code. Your GPU is not tied to your BIOS. Besides, if you've got an AMD card. Since that's our usual error, I'm gonna disappear and go cry in pain. I will. I'll catch you guys next week. Video tomorrow as always. And yeah, I will. I'll catch you guys later. See ya.